Okay, guys, in the new episode of Denim and Leather Podcast, we have a great violin player, a little bit alternative, Emily V. You're coming from the West Coast, right?
Yes, Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. How are you first?
I'm good. How are you?
It's morning there, so here is a little bit late, going closer to dark.
It's morning, and I'll tell you what, I very rarely get myself ready in the morning like this. I'm usually still drinking coffee, but that's okay. I had my coffee. And where are you?
I'm in southern Europe, so it's getting very close to dark now.
What part of Europe?
I'm in you heard of the country Macedonia?
Yes.
So it's neighboring to Greece, very close to Italy. We're here. So it's southern Europe, southeastern probably, and
Okay.
we have a lot of sun here, just like you have there. First, I wanted to ask you because people in Europe are probably not that familiar with Emily V.
Not yet.
Yeah. So when did you start with violin or with other instruments or with music in general?
So violin is my first instrument. And I started, I actually asked my parents for lessons, and my dad played when he was in grade school and didn't really continue after that. But when I was a young girl, my parents showed me these violins that my dad had played on when he was a young boy, and I picked up the violin and I just like instantly fell in love. Um, I don't know. I don't know if I played violin in another life, but I just knew that I wanted to play. I begged my parents for lessons. My mom, I come from a big family. I have five brothers, and I think my mom was a little bit hesitant to maybe pay for lessons right away if she didn't know that I was going to be kind of like into it. And I was. So I finally started playing when I was I was 11, I was about to turn 12. And I'm classically trained, so I started in classical music. But I'm raised on classic rock, and I always knew that I wanted to be an alternative violinist and play like other styles. In fact, I always was trying to kind of copy Jimi Hendrix on the violin with a wah pedal and stuff. I was like 15 and I was in my room. I had soldered on a different kind of input on my I had an 1/8 inch, and I cut it off and soldered on a 1/4 inch, and I duct taped it on, and I plugged in a wah pedal and I put it into an amp, and I would pretend like I was Jimi Hendrix on the violin, but it sounded like shit. I mean, it sounded horrible. Um, but yeah, so that was kind of that was how I got started. And then I long story short, I ended up going to school for music. I got a scholarship. I moved down to LA. Went to Long Beach State as a violin performance major. So I was still doing a lot of classical, but in this time I had taught myself guitar. I was listening to, I was raised listening to Led Zeppelin and the Rolling Stones and the Doors and Pink Floyd and the Beatles and all that stuff. And then my big brother turned me on to like Alice in Chains and Nirvana, and like 90s hip hop and all that world. And then I had another brother that was really into like Iron Maiden and Metallica. So I had a lot of different influences. And then when I went to school, I was submersed in the classical world, but then I was also submersed in the jazz world. So I was kind of diving into like Stefan Grappelli, Miles Davis, John Coltrane, like all that kind of stuff. So I've really got my influence from every single style of music there really is out there. And I was a waitress in college, and I would go to the Irish pub after I waitressed. I would go to school, I would waitress, and then I would go to the pub and I would meet every single band that played there, like 6 nights a week. And I would sit in with every single band that would let me. And that was actually really where I cut my teeth as a performer, as an improvisational violinist, as getting my rig together. I've since I have several different amps I play through. I have several different pedal boards I've built. I've played with many, many people. I've toured with many people. I've recorded with many people. I'm doing my own thing. And now I am not your typical violinist, and I love to rock out.
Wow, it's a great history of how you got to here. But tell me, what's interesting? You're like the third alternative violinist that I've ever heard in my life. The first one was I'm a huge fan of Twisted Sister of Dee Snider, and first time I heard was Mark Wood. You know Mark Wood?
Yes.
Mark Wood played with Dee Snider in a band. So yeah.
I know him personally. I've in fact, he found me at NAMM one year, and he really wanted me to play on his. He's got a line of electric violins.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't know of that connection. Do you record albums with a lot of people?
I have recorded with a lot of different people. I've got a studio, as you can see. So I do record remotely for people, and I collaborate with people. I'm currently trying to write and record my own personal stuff.
Your personal album, or maybe?
Yes.
Yeah. So when I told you that I've heard for three people that do that, I know Lindsey Sterling, but she plays more like a pop music.
Yeah, she's incredible. Mark Wood is incredible. All these violinists are incredible. I would say that we're all very, very different style-wise. Yeah, I don't know. I think because my influences have mostly come from guitar players. And even now what I've been kind of diving into is the influence of a vocalist and what a vocalist can do, because since my violin, I don't have frets on my violin, I can, and all of these other violinists would probably say the same thing, these other alternative violinists, is I can create sounds and tones that a lot of other guitarists and other instruments cannot do, but I can kind of morph into the sound of a guitar or a saxophone or a harmonica, or a beautiful acoustic violin,
Yeah. So do you always have your color of the sound, or you always switch?
I would say my tone is pretty consistent with, I think a lot of people, with the way I play, and I think with my tone, because I'm not a very shrill, bright violinist. My violin is a little bit more dark and warm and girthy and stuff, because I like to almost emulate the tone of a really, I'm trying to think of some guitarists that I really love. Of course it escapes me when I'm on the spot. But that really warm, tone that really cuts through, as opposed to sometimes for me, violin, especially electric violin, can be too shrill and sparkly sounding.
Yeah, maybe because you mentioned Alice in Chains, maybe Jerry Cantrell, he has that dark tone, maybe.
Alice in Chains is one of my all-time favorite bands.
Yeah, and they're darker.
All time.
And they're dark.
And Lane Staley's vocals, I love to do Lane Staley's vocals on my violin, because he's just so swimming through all these weird notes and stuff.
Yeah, he has those harmonies. Maybe you should try the high ones, like Sebastian Bach or Rob Halford or something.
Yeah. Actually, I saw Jerry Cantrell not that long ago. I saw him a handful of months ago. His poster is in my bathroom. Yeah, I have one of my bathrooms in my house I'm collecting band posters, because I wanted my bathroom to feel like a green room bathroom when you go in there and there's all the flyers and posters of different bands.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of creating that in my bathroom right now, and I've got a what do you call it? The light that makes everything glow. A black light. I have a black light in there.
Okay, yeah.
My big brother gave me a black light, so I put a lot of black light posters in there.
It's good for inspiration for your next music, maybe.
Yeah, so when you're using the restroom, you can sit there and
how do you create music? You first write on your you play on your violin, or first you like write the music down? How do you do that?
So I also play guitar. I play a little bit of basic keys, and I'm really into writing lyrics. In fact, I'm a mad woman right now. I've written so many lyrics. I'm just I've got a couple different people that I'm co-writing with as well, and kind of waiting to see what forms into what the album is going to be. I actually, to back up a little bit, I actually wrote and recorded about half of an album with John Avila back during the pandemic. And I sort of changed my direction a little bit musically, so it didn't quite make sense for me at the time to put some of that stuff out, but it was still very much in the same vein of what I really love in the style of music. I think now, sorry, I'm kind of deviated off your question. I'll get back to that. But I think now I've really been digging deep back into my roots of like blues rock. It's interesting because like I play violin. I think a lot of people expect it to either be classical or country. I'm just not, country is not my forte. There's certain country that I really love, especially like old classic country. But the style of music that I really love, I think, because I listen to a lot of Led Zeppelin, and that's a lot of their influences were a lot of the old blues guys and stuff like that. So now I'm like kind of diving into this, like, riff based with a, four on the floor kind of, where they sing with the riff on the guitar, but doing it on violin.
Yeah.
Kind of like how Larkin Poe is, I love Larkin Poe. If you know Larkin Poe, the sisters, they've got that kind of earthy, grounded vibe. So when I write, it's always different. Sometimes I get inspired to write lyrics. Sometimes I get inspired, I'll just get my headphones on here and I'll throw on a drummer from like Logic or something, and I'll mess around on the keys. And then I'll throw a violin on. It's actually the irony, now answering this question, the irony of the whole thing is that I actually almost never start a song on violin.
Never.
I can't think of a song that I've ever started writing on violin. I think I've always gone to a chordal instrument first, that with the actual music, or I've had the lyrics going. So that's interesting. I never really thought about that until just now.
So it was a good question then.
Yeah. I just had like a light bulb go on.
Yeah. Did you tour with some bands back in the past, or no? I mean.
Yeah. I mean, I've toured and performed and guest artists with a lot of different people. I was on the road with the Adicts. They're a old punk band.
Yeah, I know them.
That have been around. I want to say back in 2016 or 18 or something like that. Anyways, I did a couple short runs with them. That was really fun, doing like the punk violin theme. I've guest artist and played with Lukas Nelson. I've played with Blind Melon.
They still exist?
Yes.
Blind Melon, yeah.
Yeah. In fact, my good friend is their lead singer. So I actually,
okay.
We lived in the same town together for a long time, and that's how we kind of like sort of stayed in touch. I've played with Robbie Krieger, the guitarist of The Doors.
Yeah.
At the Whiskey, which was very cool.
Wow.
I got to trade solos with him. He was on guitar, I was on violin. And then I've been with a lot of other bands that have been, maybe not as internationally known, but have done some amazing things like that. I've gotten to open up for some great people. I've played Rock to Recovery at the Fonda Theater in LA with all the sober musicians. I'm a sober musician. So I got to play with some celebrity musicians there. So I mean, I could go on and on. Yeah, I've gotten to do some pretty fun and exciting things.
I love it. I mean, I didn't know about all of the history, of your playing. On how many records, maybe, do you know how many CDs or vinyls your music is on?
Um, Not off the top of my head, but it
Yeah,
would be a lot.
a lot.
And in fact, one of the last like most involved was I was in the Kevin Sousa band, and for those of you that are in Europe and stuff won't know, but locally we were a fairly big local band to where I live. And Kevin Sousa was a good friend of mine. He has since passed away. We're coming up on 2 years. So when he died, that obviously was the end of that project. But we rewrote and recorded an album during the pandemic. And that album is on Spotify under the Kevin Sousa band. Actually might be under Kevin Sousa, Sousa. And all of the strings on there are recorded by myself. In fact, we recorded all of them in the bathroom at the studio that we were at. My violin was recorded in the bathroom there.
Wow.
But there's some great things on there. It's a little hard for me to listen to that album because I was very close with Kevin and he was like a big brother to me. But the music's great, and there's some really ripping violin on there too.
Yeah. So I gotta ask you, because it's Emily V. The V stands for violin, right?
No, the V is it's just Emily V.
Okay, so it stands for like an artistic name, right?
It's just my stage name, Emily V. It's
V.
just that when I went to go change it from Facebook on, I'm on the personal Facebook, my artist Facebook, and my artist Instagram. And for a long time, I didn't use my personal Facebook page for much until maybe this last year. I thought, well, I've got a lot of people that don't follow me on these other places, so I started just kind of sharing what I was sharing on all my other platforms there. And I try to change my name, and Facebook won't let it just be one letter. So it's Emily Violin, and a lot of people think my name is Emily Violin. It's not. It's just that's what my Facebook says.
But it sounds good. It sounds good.
Yeah.
What are your next maybe plans on doing something short term or long term?
Well, currently I'm playing with many different projects. Keeps me very, very busy. As you know, we had to reschedule this about a billion times.
Yeah.
And so right now I'm just kind of co-writing with a couple of the different projects that I'm in right now to kind of see sort of, I think as an artist, it's just kind of finding, who can commit and kind of put their all into a project. And for me, that's the most important. And so, I think by this next year, by the end of this year, there'll be some more recordings out of more of my original stuff. I'm in talks with a studio in Nashville and some different things as well. So that's the kind of short and long term goals, because those are both, right? And I've got a lot of my calendar is very full with traveling and flight dates and stuff with another project that wants me to go on tour with them by the end of this year. And an Irish rock band that I'm already a part of right now, and we've got a bunch of dates through the end of this year. And then a project that I've started with my now singer, his name's Danny Beisel. We're writing and recording together. And then I've got another new guitarist that's come in, wants to do a project. And then in between, I'm writing all my own original stuff. So I don't know if that answers, but definitely a lot of things are happening right now. I would say if you want to see what's happening, I would definitely follow my Instagram and my Facebook, because I'm very active on social media too.
Yeah, we will put all the links down there so people can find out. But I always see on your socials on Facebook, I followed you. I always see a packed clubs where you play. I mean, it's sold out shows, right?
Oh, yeah. So, because I started doing a solo show a couple years ago, and I played in Arizona. I'm trying to think when I think it was in February, and it was just me fronting my own project, and I had my very, very good friend Steve Aguilar, who I lovingly call Shag. He's a keyboard player. He plays keys and keys bass, and he's an incredible MD and an incredible person. He's one of my best friends. He was my partner on that project. at least during that show, because I've also done that show with Jonathan Mover, who's a very well-known drummer for Joe Bonamassa. He performs with me as well. That's another project that I'm supposed to be possibly joining and touring with a little bit this year and into next year with Jonathan Mover. If any of you guys are fans of him, then you know how incredible he is.
Awesome.
But when I went to go do this solo show in Arizona, completely sold out both nights to the brim. So a lot of things that I'm doing right now, I think a lot of people are very excited about, and for the most part, like, everything's mostly selling out. So I'm very blessed. I'm very lucky. I'm very thankful for people that are following my journey.
Well, I can see you're very busy and you're already in the studio, so maybe you'll work on some music. So I gotta thank you for this interview. Thank you for accepting the offer of this interview, and it was a long wait, but we did it.
Yes, and thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you, Emily.